The following presentation is brought to you by the RELM Network.
It's right about time again to swerve again, confuse the general fans again. Add another swerve and then...
Oh shit! It's Vince Russo!
Vince McMahon's best kept secret.
I am the anti-Christ of professional wrestling!
David Arquette won the world title!
I've got a wife, 3 kids at home, and I really don't need this shit.
How can this show be so awful, Mr. McMahon? I didn't think it was.
Viagra on a pole match.
And Hogan, you big bald son of a bitch, kiss my ass!
Judy Bagwell on a forklift match. McMahon, the family, The Rock, they screwed us all.
Now you're the editor, right?
Mankind did it! Jumpy, beat me! Goldberg speared Russo on the table.
I'm from New York.
I'll get downright nasty.
This is Vince Russo's The Brand.
When I bring this guest on, I never like to waste any of his time because I know his time is valuable, especially now. It's really valuable. And I'm very, very thankful that he's coming on the show with us here today. I'm talking about the one and only Mr. Billy Corgan. Billy, how you doing today?
I'm fine, Vince. Thank you very much. Nice to be back on your program.
Nice to see you again, Billy. Now, listen, I see, Billy, I don't know if I've ever seen you this unkempt. You got the beard going on over there. Look like you haven't slept in a couple of days. Is this what happens when you become the president of TNA Wrestling?
Wow. I mean, it's a job, I'll tell you. I'm running ragged trying to get this thing going in the direction I want it to go in, and very excited. Been up the last couple of nights shooting vignettes. I know you're a big vignette fan, so we've literally been up till 5 a.m. and then 6 a.m.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that. Billy, before we get into all this, I got a million questions for you, bro. And, I don't have any notes here or nothing like that. I don't do it that way. We're going to talk like we always talk. But, Billy, I got to ask you this first. I'm a little curious. Now, I've been opening up a lot of my shows in song. People seem to enjoy when I sing. And I know you listen to a lot of our shows, so you've had to hear me maybe sing once or twice. Is there any future there, Billy, for me?
None at all.
Oh, come on, bro! Just like that, nothing.
You have you actually your pitch is good. You got good commitment. You commit to your spot, but I wouldn't say you have a pleasing singing voice.
Well, the soundbite I'm using is my pitch is good. That's a Billy Corgan soundbite I'm using. Now, Billy, let's talk about this. Let me first start because I've been butchering it, and I want to know what is the official title now that you hold it at TNA Wrestling?
I am president of Impact Wrestling. Okay,
you are president of Impact Wrestling. And Billy, it's not that I'm purposely asking the tough questions. I'm asking the questions that I want to know because there were so many things for such a long period of time I was really confused about. And Billy, I'm not, you know me, bro. I'm not the dirt guy. I'm not calling, Irish Pat and people like this trying to find out what's going on. That's not me. I kind of sit back, whatever is your business and it's TNA business, that's your business. And then when everything comes out, then I'm like, oh, okay, now I get it. But Billy, there was a lot of talk, and this is where I want everybody to have an understanding. The talk was always, and I can't confirm this, it was none of my business, but they were talking about a change in TNA for a very, very long time. Certain companies were coming forward, maybe buying into the company, buying out Dixie Carter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the stories I always, heard basically was Dixie did not want to give up the majority share of her company. And I got to be honest with you, I kind of get that. I mean, Dixie's put 14 years into TNA. I get it. And I understand how difficult, that might have been for her. So like the first question I have to ask is, as president of TNA, Billy, does that involve an ownership? Is Dixie still the majority owner? That's what I don't understand, because knowing that, I think, really clarifies your role to a lot of people.
Okay, good question. And first time I've ever talked about it on the record. So it's a good place to start. I am the president. I do have an ownership stake. It's a fluctuating situation on the business side, which I can't talk about certain details of it, but I would say it's moving progressively in the right direction because at the end of the day, the company needs resources and the funding to continue. And I think those are good decisions that have been made. So whether or not at the end of the day, I or somebody else ends up with a majority stake, or Dixie keeps her majority stake, that's still kind of yet to remain to be seen. But I see all the moves that are happening as good moves. But the one thing I can tell you is that I'm the president and I'm running the operational part of the company. As you know, there's different parts of the company that are sort of not necessarily bigger than the president role, because in essence, the president sets the tone for the company. But there are other deals that get made that don't have to do necessarily with the day-to-day product and the day-to-day running of the wrestling company. So does it make sense? It's hard to get into that without getting into a bunch of other stuff that I don't think people.
Well, Bill, let me tell you why I'm asking the question. Here's why I'm asking the question, because when I see all this play out, like this is what goes through my mind. And, obviously it goes through my mind, having been there for over a decade and, kind of knowing the players a little bit. That's why I asked the question. And I think it's important. I've always said this, and I've gone on the record as saying this. I think, it is possible to have a successful wrestling company, but I think one thing needs to happen. And I think this is where WCW fell short. I think this is where TNA fell short, even when I was there. But this is where WWE succeeded. And it was Vince McMahon obviously had a lot to do with that. I think it's very important that the best people are hired for the jobs. And I think it's very important that those people stay in their lanes with their responsibility. So in other words, if you have everybody staying in their lane and doing the job that they were hired to do, where they have the expertise, I think you're going to get a successful company. This is what I've always found out in the wrestling business. The lanes tend to start crossing, and they usually start to cross when power comes into play. People, it's human nature. It's really not the individuals. It's human nature. People want power, power, power. So all of a sudden they start doing things that might not be their strong set. Now, I'm kind of looking at TNA almost now as a three-headed monster. I see, Dixie Carter is going to do the day-to-day business operations from what I gather. Billy Corgan is going to, oversee all creative. And John Gaborik, I would still assume, is going to keep on the road, the role of talent relations. So I'm looking at this format, and like the first question that I have to ask myself is like, Dixie always used to say to me, Vince, you got 100% creative control. I'll back you all the time. It's whatever you want to do creatively. The fact of the matter is that was never the case. She did get involved. She had a subtle way of getting involved. She had a subtle way of making her creative feelings known. And that was difficult for me at times. So that's why when I talk to you, like, I just think TNA is in a hell of a lot better shape if Billy is 100% the creative guy, can't be challenged, can't be vetoed, and he's the guy calling the shots. So can we assume that's the role?
That is the role. That is the power that I've inherited, and that is the power I intend to execute. That said, I'm a person, because of my musical background, and that's 30 years of doing that, and that includes working with video directors and presidents of record labels and things like that. I'm a firm believer that if you can't get everybody moving in the same direction, power doesn't really mean much anyway. Mm-hmm. You can use your power, you can throw your power around, you can bully, you can intimidate, but if it doesn't really mean something to the person on the other end of it, you're not going to get the results that you want. So I believe that, and I've been saying this since day one, since I walked in, TNA lacks a systemic approach that starts from creative on down, that runs through the business. And because of that, and you're very aware of that, you get these kind of weird things where people don't know who's really calling the shots, who to turn to. And I think that's really hurt the business. And I've seen it hurt the business in the time that I've been essentially an employee underneath that structure. So I have every intention on synergizing the business to the creative, to the talent, and back through. I think we have an incredible roster of talent. I want their input. At the same time, I have to balance out the business concerns, which are plenty and well documented. But it's my job to sort of synergize them into one vision that will last and endure and grow. I believe I know how to do that, and I'm tough enough to not only take the heat when I make a mistake. I'm also a person who will raise his hand and say, I've made a mistake and we need to correct our direction. But at the end of the day, I only took this spot because I have that control and that power to make those calls. And without that, I wouldn't have taken it.
Well, Billy, when I sit back and I look at this, why this is a whole different animal. Again, I did work with people that wanted power. I did, and I wasn't one of those guys. And I got to tell you something. I wound up losing a lot. But this is a totally different animal because you are Billy Corgan. You are one of you're a rock legend. I mean, I don't think Billy Corgan is on any kind of a power trip, which right there, that totally changes the game. Billy, I got to ask you this because my ADD just kicked in. I'm like 10 seconds behind this interview. Why in God's name are you wearing an Orioles hat, bro?
Didn't you say I pointed at the
Yeah, what that? Yeah, I just got that. Why are you wearing an now of all times?
Now, Vince, if you recall the last time we had an interview, you called for firing just about everybody involved in TNA except
pretty
me.
Much. Yeah, pretty much.
And as you know, our friend,
big Orioles fan. Yeah.
So this is my public way of backing Big right here. I'm
all
letting
right.
you know right now. Vince,
Billy, that's very nice of you. That's a very nice. Yeah, I know Big's a huge Orioles fan. Okay, Bill, let's get back to business because I got a million questions for you. Billy, I know you did, and I would have to assume, I'm not even going to ask the question, when you were a part of Renaissance Pro out of Chicago, that had to help you in certain areas prepare for where you are now. At least you got a little taste. Also, you were on the bubble of doing that reality wrestling show. So, you got a little feel of the business before you went to TNA. But Billy, I can assume this is a whole different animal. So explain to me, what are some of the things you're having to deal with, for the very first time?
Honestly, nothing is hitting me for the first time. It's just getting it into a place where I'm making decisions that are best for the company. In terms of the pumpkins, maybe this is the best way I can say it, and I'm not here to talk about my musical life, but in terms of the pumpkins, if there's an issue, I can fix it creatively myself. So the only difference here in the wrestling business is I can't fix all these things creatively myself. I can't go in the ring. I can't wrestle a 5-star match to make it all go away. I have to understand and work with everybody involved to get the best out of the company. So there's a different dynamic, but to me, it's fairly similar. It's really about resources, understanding your resources and getting the best of what you have. But again, organizationally, I would say TNA is behind the curve. And so my first job is really to get some sort of consistent organizational flow so that we can maximize the opportunities that we do have. And then I've got to go out in the world and I've got to beat that drum and I've got to bring people to the table that maybe don't think they're interesting either as fans or as people that would want to invest in the future. And I think the tech future and wrestling's future is going to be very bright. You see WWE kind of turning the corner on that. Some people would argue it's a success story. I actually think that we're still in the very, very early days of wrestling and technology and the internet and virtual reality and any number of things. So I'm trying to keep it simple, but I need to get some sort of organizational and consistent creative flow through the company that reflects the vision I have, so I can actually then turn around and take that into the 21st century boardroom and get people back invested in wrestling as something that can drive their businesses, whether that be for advertising or whatever else.
Okay, Billy, I'm gonna break this down with the time that I have with you. I'm gonna break this down into two categories. I'm gonna break it down into business and I'm gonna break it down into creative because both of them are just as equally important. So I'm gonna give you the choice. What do you want to talk about first?
Well, I'd rather talk about creative. I mean, business is it's let's call it, it's boring. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm not in the wrestling business to be in the business. I'm in the wrestling business to be in the creative business. But I have to get the business part straight to be creative.
Well, I have let me ask you the business questions first, because I think the business questions will set up the creative, and the reason why I say I'm referencing them as business questions, but they are having to do with business that was a part of my creative, throughout my career in the business. Here's number one, Billy. And again, I'm hitting you with I'm not putting you on the hot seat. These are things I dealt with, and these are questions I asked myself. This was a WCW problem I had, and I'll tell you exactly what it was. Ed Ferrari and myself went to the company when they were getting killed in the ratings by WWE. Within three months, we, kind of like what I think you're going to have to do. Within 3 months, we broke down the foundation. We were starting to build our foundation and get the pieces in place, and you could start seeing the ratings start to rise, and we were getting things in place. And this was over a 3-month period. So what happened again, Billy? Politics, they sent Vince Russo home, called me back in 3 months because the ratings went back to where they were before they hired Vince. Now, Billy, I knew, I felt inside, I knew it. I was like, we lost them. We lost them. We had the audience. We were getting them back. We were gaining momentum. We lost them. And no matter how hard I tried, I had this feeling like, Vince, you're not going to get them back. You had a good product. You tease them with a good product for 3 months. 3 months, they got a crappy, you lost them. So now I look at you, Billy, and, again, it has nothing to do with me, but at one point, TNA was at 2 million viewers. Now I think the last show was about 350,000. Is there any way, Billy, like that you have a plan to get these viewers back outside of time? And over a period of time, they will come back. Do you have an idea or something in mind to maybe quicken the process a little bit, or is that just not doable?
Absolutely, I have ideas on how to quicken the process. The question is, can I execute it, and can I navigate, the politics that are involved with any professional wrestling company? Not everyone is going to agree with my vision. It's been my experience in professional wrestling that many people inside the business don't agree with my vision, but I know from your experience and other people's experience that that's usually what happens when you bring ideas to the table, which are foreign to the way that business is normally done. But absolutely, I plan on hitting the gas pedal as soon as I'm in, firmly in the driver's seat. That's the way I've always run my life, and I got no problem doing it here. The thing I would say though, and it's a very, very difficult question, which is not easily answered. As we entered into this new age, ratings are not the Bible on everything that happens within a wrestling company at this point. There is the TV deals that you have and how they reflect the ratings, and then of course the sponsors. Right now, the biggest critical issue with TNA is we've not attracted sponsors that can help stabilize our financial situation. We're way behind the curve on that. So if it was a question of, do you need to bring partners to the table that will support the product and help you craft a long-term sort of stability, versus say doing a bunch of stuff that will drive up ratings but won't really change your bank book because of the way things are structured at the moment. Those are difficult decisions to make, but absolutely I want to get more ratings. I want to get more talk. I want to get more buzz. And it's been shown by some of the stuff, particularly with the Final Deletion and where Matt and Jeff are right now in their careers and their ability to still draw. We have shown that we can go up with those ratings quite easily if we have something that people really, really want to see. The difficult part on the creative side, and I've been part of the booking committee, so I bear this responsibility as well, is when we drive stuff up, we know we have good shows coming and the ratings go back down. We're not able to hold those viewers, and that's something that I would focus on right away, why we're not holding viewers.
Yeah. But yeah, God, Billy, I have more questions about business, but I really do want to talk about the creative. But let me just try to briefly sum this up, because there are two things that I look at. And I know last time you and we talked a little bit about finances And you basically said, like, you didn't think the finances were the be all end all. And I agree with that, Billy. I don't believe finances are be all end all, but I do believe this. And this, man, I heard this said so many times at TNA. You could have the greatest product in the world. If people don't know about it, it doesn't matter. They have to know about it. And Billy, you know the stories of, the Kurt Angles and the Kevin Nashes and the Booker T's, walking through the airport. Hey, we love you in WWE. When are you going back? And Kurt saying, well, I've been wrestling for TNA for the last 5 years. So we all know those stories. And Billy, I know the advertising dollars aren't there, but God, bro, isn't it an uphill battle to not have the money to say, wait a minute, it's a new day in TNA. We're doing things different. You got to check us out. How do you overcome that, Billy, not having the financials to let people know you need to check this show out again?
Well, I think that I've evolved on different theories as it pertains to wrestling and viewership. And one thing I would say, and again, we're speaking very simply for the sake of conversation, there's more depth to these answers, I think, and everyone listening will understand that. There's a general assumption in the wrestling world, and I'm not pointing any fingers, it's just a general feeling you get that the wrestling fans aren't very bright. And you need to do kind of stupid stuff to get them to pay attention. I've actually evolved on that, not because I held that position. That was just something that I'd heard over and over again, like, the old keep it simple, stupid. I actually think the modern wrestling fan is super bright and wants more information, not less, and doesn't want their intelligence insulted in any way particular. So if a character gets from here to here to here, how do they get there? What's the logic behind it? So I would argue for more depth and more consistency. I think fans are willing to take a journey with any team, and let's just classify us as a team at the moment, if they feel that the institutional part of that team is moving in the right direction. Nobody wants to stand behind a loser. Nobody wants to stand behind a team that's never going to win the big one. People want to get behind a team that they feel is going places. And we certainly have the roster to do that. But I don't think we've shown, and I include myself in this criticism, the institutional control to create a product that consistently draws people back because they believe in the universe that you're presenting. Now, you can point to resources, but I think that's ultimately a cop-out. I think it can be done creatively. And I've certainly done that in my own life, so I plan on doing that here. Now, once you get that sort of momentum behind you, then you can go out and get the resources. Then you can attract the free agents. You can tell people. And I think, look no further there than an Aaron Haddad, Aaron Rex with us, formerly Damian Sandow coming. I think that shows you that the boys are talking and people are, telling people, look, you want to come here. We're starting to turn the corner here. A free agent signing would not happen like that if he wasn't hearing from the inside, from people he knows and trusts in the business, that we're on to something. So that's a sign to you that at least inwardly things are starting to cook.
Okay, Bill, you said something, very, 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 very important about, you talked about the wrestling fan, but I don't know if you're talking about the wrestling fan that's already watching wrestling or the casual television viewer that may no longer be watching. I don't know. What audience are we talking about?
Perfect question. In the short term, the easiest person to get to come to the table is a person who consistently watches wrestling.
Yes.
And there are millions of people who at one point watched at least one, episode of Impact and turned it off and didn't turn it back on. Those are the easiest people to get back to the table. Now, hold that thought 1 second. But at the end of the day, you and I know, and we've had these discussions multiple times in private, if you do not attract a mainstream audience to your product, you're dead. You're dead. So back to the other thought really quickly. I'm not a big fan of booking for the fan who thinks that they know how to book a promotion. I do not think that's how you book a wrestling promotion. I don't think the guys at Breaking Bad sat around, as they were booking their angles, or the guys at Walking Dead sit around and book for the smart marks. They have to book with everything balanced between the things. I think we can book in a way that will not insult the hardcore wrestling fan, will actually bring them to the table and get them singing our praises as the most forward-thinking an interesting wrestling company of the 21st century. But that's one war I've got to win. The bigger war I've got to win is to draw back that mainstream fan who doesn't understand why they want to bother watching wrestling when they have 500 other choices, and it ain't like it used to be, and Ric Flair ain't there anymore, and da-da-da-da-da. You got to get those people to come back, or you got to get them to tell their kids that they should watch because something's happened, and then it reminds them of what they used to like about wrestling. You've got to win that war. If you don't, you're dead.
Yeah. And Billy, that's why, bro, what you're saying is so dead on. When we wrote the Attitude Era, I used to refer to it as we are writing a thinking man's show. There was layer on top of layer on top of layer. That's when we drew the greatest audience, and that's when we drew the casual fans, because it wasn't, we weren't addressing the niche market that was already there. But Billy, here's where I always ran into a problem. And Billy, I'm just going to tell you like this, a lot of the problem came from the top. As you start going through this process, okay, this is Billy. And Billy, I'll be honest with you, I waved the white flag, and that was maybe I shouldn't have, but I was just worn out and tired. So I waved the white flag. As you go through the process, and the people that are currently watching the show are the smallest audience with the loudest voice. Okay. And I think this is what has happened to TNA a lot in the past. As they make their voices heard that, wait a minute, we don't like what you're doing. This is not the wrestling we signed up for. And that's the only audience you have. All of a sudden now, that starts affecting things at the top, because that's the only feedback they're reading. Casual television viewers are not writing into websites and dirt sheets. And that's what happened to me, Billy. I got enough with that, and I waved the white flag. Okay, fine. We'll write a basic wrestling show. So, and I got tired of fighting this fight. You're gonna go through that, Billy, for at least 6 months to a year. I'm sure you're equipped to overcome that, but I failed at that, Billy. It got to me after a while, and I waved the white flag.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a question there. I just I trust my ability to navigate those kinds of mazes. I deal with in my own artistic life. I deal with this hardcore need of you should do this and you don't do that and please do this and please bring this person back. I've dealt with it for 30 years. So I'm very used to it, and it doesn't knock me off my block. I trust my ability to see through all that and see a brighter future. Think about this, and I would point people to this. I was involved in the beginning of what became the Final Deletion. There was the first angle with Matt, Jeff, and Rebby. I had a little bit to do with it, but the biggest thing I had to do with it was pushing our creative and our the office includes Dixie, to take a chance like this, to go outside the box, which I know you're a big fan of. The reaction to that first angle, that first thing that happened, and with the Jeff going through the table, was pretty 50-50.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A lot of people were howling, "This is the worst thing," and this might be the worst thing I've ever seen in wrestling. Okay. The day that whole thing came out, I was inside the company writing emails. We've got to do a bigger version of what we just did. We have lightning in a bottle. Yeah. And there were people inside the company that were afraid to move in that direction. And I pushed and pushed and pushed for a bigger thing, which became the Final Deletion. And now you literally have fans on other people's product chanting, "Delete, delete, delete." Mm-hmm. So here we are down the road. You have to trust your talent. You have to trust your ability to take a shot both ways, meaning take the shot as a chance and take the shot if you're wrong. I'll go into battle with Matt and Jeff any day of the week. They're visionary wrestlers. They've proven their staying power. They're stars. Stars can take chances, fail, and rebound. They can get up off the mat. And I applaud Matt and Jeff for leading the way on that, for not risking their careers, but risking their reputations. And they literally have the hottest thing in wrestling for the last few months because of that ability to take that chance. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of where wrestling needs to go in the 21st century. And the fact that another company immediately copied what we were doing told you that we were onto something.
Yeah.
So there you go. So why am I in North Carolina right now? We're filming more Insanity. I've been up for 2 nights in a row And hopefully Disco will be singing our praises once again. And the genius of Jeremy Boresh.
Yeah. Okay, Billy. Now we're going to talk one creative genius to another. All right. Billy, I knew when I saw the Final Deletion masterpiece, this is immediately like, this is where my head goes in. Okay, let me tell you this. I know because you were one of the few, Billy, maybe one of the only, that sent me a congratulatory email on this little television deal we got. And I got a little company here in Colorado, Rocky Mountain Pro, that I've been working very hard with. But bro, here's why I got a huge I've got a huge advantage, because like I'm starting from episode 1. So like whatever that show is on episode 1, that's the show. I don't have to overcome, like 14 years of programming. So here's what I'm looking at when I'm seeing this Final Deletion. And I brought this up with Jeremy, and I know it'll be a fair question to you. I'm saying to myself, this is so phenomenal, and it's so beyond the realm of wrestling. And I said it online. It was like the greatest 17 minutes of on a wrestling show I ever saw in my life, including anything I ever wrote. That is an absolute shoot. But then I'm saying to myself, how are they going to go from this to a wrestling arena? And Billy, no disrespect, because I've been watching the show, to a wrestling arena where bad fake wrestling is still happening. And I told Jeremy, I kept asking him that, because I'm like, Jeremy, this is phenomenal. How within the confines of the same show, how do we go from this to an in-ring promo where they're talking about kicking each other's ass, and I'm better than you, and I want your title? Like, and that's what I'm seeing on the show, Billy. Like, that's exactly what I'm seeing. These little vignettes, the Rosemary vignettes, for instance. I'm watching a movie. I'm not even watching a wrestling show. Holy crap, this is great. 5 minutes later, the champion's walking around the back with his heavyweight title over his shoulder, that like he walks around town. Is that an issue? Like, I'm sure you got to be thinking about that, because I don't know how, like, which way do we go with it? Because it really is two totally different messages. One I love, the other one I've seen a million times because it's wrestling, and you know that.
I think pointing out that you have a stress point between the success of the Final Deletion and, let's call it, traditional wrestling presentation, I think those are good problems to have. For me, I see an indication that this is where the business wants to go. Great, we need to figure out how to build that and consistently deliver it. And then I think if you can do that and you can build people's interest in the finishes, then I think they'll show up. So again, good problems to have. But you can't, when Billy Beane figured out that small ball was going to be the future of small market teams in baseball, you don't automatically flip a switch and suddenly you're building a World Series contender. It takes time to find your people. It takes time to build crews. It takes time to find the right people who can edit those things. Right now, we're running sort of a kind of a in-house mafia of who could do that stuff. You have Jeremy, Jimmy, with people who are used to working together, and we're able to work very quickly. So we're shooting like 5 days worth of television in 2 nights, that kind of thing. We don't have a system yet to like you said, how do you follow this up? We have to build that, so that if we set an expectation, and that's the expectation that you want to see from Impact Wrestling, we're able to deliver that week after week.
Billy, what's at the top of the list? Like, what, we've done the Final Deletion now. I when you emailed me and said, yeah, I'm in North Carolina next couple of days, I thought that's great, because that tells us more is coming. But what's at the top of your list, Billy? Like, what is it? Like, what do I need to do immediately to get things back on track? Now, you're away shooting vignettes that I'm sure are going to be phenomenal. We got some great minds working on them. I understand that. But obviously, there's a much bigger picture. So what is on the top of that list for you?
I think it's stabilizing the business. I think, you've heard lots of signals coming from within. You know, I don't control what everybody writes in the dirt sheets, but I mean, there's been a lot of talk. Sometimes I'm surprised by how much people know. So you've got to stabilize the business. You have to sort of present a consistency. And that's the number one thing, is just to stabilize the business. But number two is I want to, you know, I've had a year and a half inside, and I know where I want this ship to go. And so I need to start pushing on that gas pedal right now to start seeing if some of the things that I want to accomplish in this company at a creative level will actually yield the results that I feel very deeply will. And as somebody whose theories that I've learned from, and a resource I can draw from, you know, somebody I can call and say, what do you think about this? You know, I think you'll be happy with the direction the program's moving in. That doesn't mean it'll be like what you would do or like what WWE would do. It's very much like what I would do, but I feel I've learned from great people on what does and doesn't work in wrestling. I've paid a lot of attention through the years, whether it's the way Paul Heyman would book or the way you would book, or, you know, Jeff Jarrett. I mean, the McMahons. I mean, there's lots of lessons out there to be learned going back to the, you know, to the good old Vern Gagne days, you know, and everybody has their theory, but until they're tested, you don't really know.
Billy, can you just give us a little glimpse into that vision? Just a little, like you mentioned, but it was kind of a broad stroke, the marriage of technology and wrestling and virtual reality. You mentioned that. What? Give me a little glimpse of what that vision is.
I think you start here. The average viewer is playing with their phone, checking their messages, texting, maybe they're tweeting. The idea that somebody's going to just sit and watch a wrestling program and really pay attention the way they would have 20 years ago is a fallacy. It's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. Why do you think when a top show, and I'm talking about, you know, a top entertainment show, I don't care, whatever. I know Breaking Bad's off there. It's the example I always use. Walking Dead, you know, they have that little hashtag, you know, I walk with the dead or whatever. Those people are relying on social media to do their market driving. They already understand and accept that that viewer is not going to sit there and just go like this for 2 hours. It's not going to happen. So number one, I think you got to pick up the pace. That doesn't necessarily mean shorter matches. I think you just have to pick up the pace of things that are happening. And I would say, going back to my comment about, I believe the wrestling audience is quite intelligent. And I think the Hardys thing proves that more than anything, with the amount of memes and the amount of talk and people picking up on the catchphrases. People are paying attention. You've got to give them more in that space to turn around and sell your product for you. In essence, you've got to work harder at the pace that the world works at now. Not say this is the way wrestling is and this is the way it's done. You've got to get up to speed. And I literally mean that. The pace needs to pick up. More stuff needs to happen, and the stuff that happens needs to matter more. Okay. Every detail needs to matter. Yeah. This is simple for me. Every ref bump, every little thing's got to matter. It needs to be explained. If it's not explained, let's start here. If a heel can run down and bump a ref, or if the heel can run down and interfere in a match and there's no consequences, why wouldn't the heel do that every match for the rest of the time?
Well, you know what we just did, Billy? You know what we just changed in Rocky Mountain Pro? You know what's the first thing I did? Because this is so freaking ridiculous. In 2016, nobody would listen to me. Nobody would listen to me anyway. Billy, how ridiculous is it in 2016 that a title doesn't change hands on a DQ or a count out? If the heel champion is in over his head, he can go in the ring, he can walk to the back, be counted out, and everything's okay.
Vince, I actually like that, but it has to be applied a particular way, and usually it's not.
What do you mean by that, Billy?
Here's your point. If a heel champ is incentivized to cheat and DQ his way out of losing his title or her title, why wouldn't they do that? Right. So what is the consequence? Well, the consequence would then be that there has to be some ramification. Usually in wrestling, everybody kind of does the no see, no hear, and pretends that it didn't happen. There's no consequence. So let's say, and I know everyone's not a fan of a GM. It doesn't have to be a GM. It could be an executive council that renders a decision, and it comes through the announcers. They basically say, okay, now that proviso has been stripped away because that person is obviously abusing that proviso. in essence, use a thing that normally goes to a dead alley and use that to tell a bigger story,
Right.
to build character, be more nuanced. Put a microphone in front of the heel's face and saying, "Weren't you incentivized?" If it was the NFL, wouldn't the sideline reporter run to the quarterback and say, "Weren't you incentivized to fumble the ball forward like that famous Raiders play with Kenny
Right.
Stabler? Weren't
Right.
you incentivized to fumble the ball forward because it was to your advantage because you had no other play?" Use it to get over character, use it to get over dimensionality, but be consistent in applying those rules. That's something that I'm a stickler for.
Yeah, we just changed the title. We changed the tag team title on a DQ. Changed them. That's it. Done. Boom. Billy, Billy, tell me about the new 3-round system. I know we haven't seen it yet, but it's coming up, and I don't think it's a spoiler alert. If people know about it, they want to see it. So that's why I'm asking you, since I have you. I was very intrigued. You talk about taking chances, doing something completely different out of the box. I've heard this talked about for years. Nobody ever did it. You're doing it from what I understand. Can you tell us a little bit about this new type of match we're going to see on TNA?
Well, historically, I thought also it had never been done, but a few friends wrote me and say there were some times, I think maybe Clash of the Champions, that there was stuff like this done. So, and obviously, it derives from the way MMA scores their matches and goes about their matches. And of course, the minute we did it, I saw all these headlines, TNA going in an MMA style direction. Not at all. My inspiration for the idea was the Pride Championships out of Japan, which were sort of the precursor to the UFC of today. And they used to run a thing called like the Grand Prix or something. And it would be one night where even if you had a champion, another guy in the company could prove he was the baddest man in the company by kind of running a gauntlet. So that was the initiation of the idea. Could you have a championship that represented a different type of thing? Like, I'm the best pound for pound fighter, or I'm the toughest man in this company. You might be the champion, but I'm tougher than you. It would create a different dynamic. And more importantly, and once we got into the idea and worked through the way to do it best for television and of course the fans, was the 3-minute rounds creates a different dynamic in terms of the way people have to work. It's a more high octane style. You only have 9 minutes to tell that story. And with the judges involved, then it's always not about pinfalls. It might be about bigger moves. Maybe a small baby face has to work kind of a more of an X Division style to get a lot of flashy moves and to press the judges, where maybe a big heel just has to do big power stuff. And how do you rate? And then it becomes about the debating of that. I'm trying not to over explain it because I want obviously fans to take the journey and enjoy something that we're still figuring out how to do. But I can tell you immediately, the matches that the men in our company have been having under that Grand Championship style are totally different than a normal wrestling match. Totally different psychology, totally different physicality, and I love it. I think it's pretty cool.
And that brings along a new championship, Billy, right? What is it called? The Grand Champion, you said?
The Impact Grand Championship.
Impact. Okay, Billy, can I give you one word of advice from Vince Russo that I think, and you've said it in this interview, I think is just as important as the greatness of the final deletion vignettes. I think it's just as important. Billy, somebody from TNA needs to sit down and watch that show and watch the details and the nuances of that show. And I'm telling you, if you start eliminating the things that we've seen in professional wrestling a million times before that make no sense in 2016, and they're happening on Impact. I mean, WWE, they don't even realize it's happening. They're oblivious to this is so outdated and so ridiculous. It's silly. I know you guys, every time I talk about TNA, I'm like, these guys are putting in the effort. The effort is there. That's why I'll watch it. That's why I'll support it. They're freaking trying. I don't think WWE is trying. But, Billy, there's things that we take for granted and we just do in wrestling that has just really become silly and stupid and a casual viewer would never buy. I think if you really stopped and looked at all those little details and one by one started correcting them, bro, I think you'd have a totally different product that people would be much more interested in much faster?
I like to think I'm the person who can kind of evolve those things forward and use some of those old school things with the right measure. Like you were mentioning, like the no DQ on the title change, no DQ type stuff. I like stuff like that if it's used in the right exact spot and used sparingly.
Right.
Like one thing that drives me crazy, and I complain to talent all the time, is why would a babyface tag team break up a pin in the middle of the ring?
Right.
It makes no sense.
Right.
Other than they want to gain an advantage because they're going to lose, but they're baby faces, so why would they? And I would literally go to talent and say, "Why did you do that?" And they said, "Well, that was the spot." And I said, "But it doesn't make any sense. You're babyface." And they go, "Oh yeah,
there you go."
Because that's the way everybody does it on the indies to create more all over the place. To me, that insults the viewer.
Billy, I'm going to share something with you that, bro, in 25 years of wrestling, I did not understand. I want to see if you know the answer to this. Then we're going to plug the hell out of Impact. I'm going to give you one more chance to put over my singing prowess, and then we're going to wrap up. Billy, I had to ask a referee this because I've been watching wrestling for 25 years, and it was never explained to me. Billy, you know when the guy goes to the top rope and the referee starts counting, but the guy comes off the top rope and lands on the guy every single time, and the referee has never done anything about it. Do you know why the referee's counting when the guy goes up to the top?
I don't know, but I would assume it has something to do with using the ropes.
No, bro, I swear to Billy, a referee told me this a week ago. When you go to the top rope, the rule in wrestling is you have 5 seconds to come off of it. That's the rule. So they're counting 1, 2, 3. As long as the guy comes down before 5, he's not breaking any rules. Bro, for as long as you and I have been wrestling, has that ever been explained by anybody?
No, and have you ever seen anyone DQ'd for staying on the top rope too long?
Never. But these are the things that I'm talking about.
You need to bring that back.
Yeah, these are the things that I'm talking about, Billy.
You send a guy to the top rope and you have that ref DQ that guy. See how it gets over.
Yeah. Billy, you know what else I did? You're going to like this too. Billy, we just had a women's match. The challenger beat the champion like into oblivion. The champion could not continue the match. The match had to be stopped, Billy. Billy, you know what I did? I took the belt off the babyface and put it on the heel, because why should the heel be penalized in a title match because the babyface champion couldn't continue? She did her job. Why shouldn't she win the title?
As long as those are my only thing would be, as long as those are the consistent rules of the promotion, great. Right. Then the fans know, and then they know, here it comes.
That's right.
If they don't know what the rules are, how can they cheer or boo or, get pissed off?
Right.
You watch any sport, you know what the rules are. And then when the rules are abused, then you get hot because you say, well, that's an abuse of the rules. In wrestling, the rules are always fluid, right?
Right.
Depending on who's watching and what time in the show it is. And so how can a person know when to get hot or upset or that was a screw job if they're always going like this?
Right. Go ahead, bro. Tell us about Impact. Tell us about, give me an exclusive. What may we be seeing in North Carolina?
Oh, let's just say, fire, explosions, the reappearance of past specters gone. I mean, it is.
I like that. I like that right there.
It is out there, and the boys have taken it to another level. I personally wanted to call it. We have a different title. But I personally wanted to call this segment "The Final Deletion 2." Because I was not yet president, I was overruled on that. But it's pretty cool. I mean, we busted hard to get something that the fans will really enjoy.
Wow, I like the Final Deletion 2, Billy. I would have voted for you. I like that.
I know. I should have. You could have called in a favor for me.
I suggested that we name our next big show Fall Brawl 98, just because we can.
There's no copyright issues there.
There might be. That's why we got away from it. But Billy, I'm bro. I'm ecstatic for you, bro. I said from day one, they asked me about Billy. I said if Billy is allowed to run, He is a creative genius. You will see a totally different product. TNA will be successful. Now we will see Billy run. And I will be watching, Billy. And you know I'm your biggest fan, rooting for you in the corner. Everybody tune into Impact now. I'm telling you, watch it with fresh eyes. This is a different day. This is a different era. We saw the tip of the iceberg with the final deletion. And, with Billy Corgan driving the car, man, I expect the unexpected. What else can I say, Billy, right?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm about to get into really will kick in when we start at Bound for Glory. So I've had a lot to do, and I'm very proud of the work that we've been doing that's, in the can and coming. But I think the real changes that we're going to be getting into are going to kick in October 2nd. So I would encourage people to watch the progress and the changes that are happening, because I've had a lot to do with the product and the positive changes in the last year, and I feel very good about that. And now I'm going to try to put my money where my mouth is and go full tilt boogie, as we say in the Pumpkins, and we'll go there. We have the roster to go there. I mean, Bobby Lashley right now, you tell me who's better in the wrestling business right now than Bobby Lashley.
Billy, do you know, Billy, I don't want to keep you long. Do you know I just worked a show with him that I got him on the show, and I booked him like months ago, but I work with a promotion here in Omaha. I hadn't seen Bobby for a while. And, Bobby came in, Bobby, he's a freak, that. But here was the difference, bro. He took that microphone. He was so freaking comfortable. And that was always his weak point, cutting the promos. That always held Lashley back. He took that microphone like he owned the freaking place. And I mean, it absolutely adds a new dimension to him.
Hey, I'll go one further. Right now, at the moment we are talking, Bobby Lashley owns professional wrestling. He is dominating our sport. I mean, he is absolutely dominating. That is not promoter hype. I am in awe. And look, it goes back to the thing, right? If Bobby Lashley walks past you in airport, you go, who the heck is that?
Yep.
I say it all the time. If I'm channel flipping and I don't give a what about wrestling, and I see Bobby Lashley on my television, if I'm not stopping and giving it 2 minutes and saying, who is this man? You know what I mean?
Yep.
I mean, wow.
And on top of that, Billy, maybe the most important thing, he's one of the good guys.
Well, not in a wrestling ring. Though.
Yeah, I'm talking about as a human being. He's a great human being.
We're so proud of his success, and I think it's pretty cool. And a lot of credit needs to go to Dixie in this regard. She created a situation where Bobby can do what he wants to do when he wants to do it.
Right.
Other times, other regimes said, no, you got to commit 100% to wrestling, Bobby. You can't do MMA. Now you see where his MMA career has turned him into a success story. I mean, I guess the only person you could compare it to is Brock Lesnar, where their abilities outside of a wrestling ring and the things they bring to the table in terms of marketability and true physical dominance have actually enhanced their ability in the wrestling ring. And I think it's pretty cool. I think we need more of those stories, not less.
Yeah, I agree. Billy, one last question and I'll let you go. Are you still feeling good about the Cubs, or are there holes that are concerning you as we get to the finish line?
The biggest issue with the Cubs are the fans. We've had 108, 9 years, whatever. I mean, my grandmother lived to 102, never saw the team win. I think I told you that.
Yeah.
To find anybody in the city who remembers, what that felt like, because they're all dead. Okay, so it's hard to believe that it can happen. It's like a weird dream, and nobody wants to go near it. So even when we get momentum and we feel like, okay, this might be our year, there's a caution in the air. And people come up to me at airports all the time because they know I'm a Cubs guy. Hey, what about your team? I like your team. Oh my God. And I always say the same thing, man, slow down, because, I'll believe it when I see it. The Cubs fans are the biggest part of the problem. Great organization, great manager, Theo Epstein, what a team he's put together. Going to be a great team for years to come.
Yeah.
But that's we get over that hump. There's what can we say?
That's what I think the difference is, bro. I think the difference is there's a manager that's going to get them over the hump, and he doesn't care about the last 100 years. And I mean, that was the biggest free agent signing the Cubs could have made, was Joe Madden. But Billy, thank you. I know you got to catch a plane, bro. And that's why I thank you so much for your time. I know you've been up for a couple of nights in a row, but thanks so much, Billy, for joining us today and giving us the scoop and letting us know what was going on, not only behind the scenes of TNA, but also in the mind of the genius of Billy Corgan. Do you want to take back before we go what you said about my singing?
No, Not at all. I feel our friendship is secure no matter what you do.
All right, Billy Corgan, thanks for joining us.
It's right about time again to swerve again, confuse the general fans again. Add another swerve and then put it on a pole again. Put it on a pole again. Put it on the pole again. And our square to quad is gonna get emotional as I wait to overbook the damn cards.